This is very, very interesting. Wow. One of the reasons why I love being in Uganda. Okay. This is interesting. Sometimes I really wonder. I think God put me in the right country. Being a Ugandan has been one of the most rewarding experiences in my lifetime. Oh! Hi everyone. Welcome back my tribe. Welcome back to Simply Legal. Terry Kahuma here again. Today I'm here to fascinate you about what is happening currently all over the world. And by saying all over the world, I'm going to zero down specifically to Afghanistan and Uganda. Many of you have been hearing about Afghanistan, Afghanistan, like we say here in Uganda, but the right pronunciation is Afghanistan. So, anyway, straight to the point. Afghanistan and Uganda have reached some sort of agreement where Uganda is going to host 2,000 refugees here in Afghanistan. Whereas this is both good and bad news, I'd like to first express my dear and sincere apologies about what's happening in Afghanistan. This is very horrible. The Taliban have taken over the government of Afghanistan, which is very horrible. But I'm here to give you the legal side, the legal analysis, because Uganda has always had an open door policy. In this video, I'm going to explain to you what the open door policy is, what the Refugee Act is, and what the legal implications of Uganda hosting 2,000 Afghanistani refugees are going to be. See you there. Hello my tribe, welcome back to Simply Legal, where we simplify the law for you to understand. Today's issue is about Afghanistan and Uganda. Many of you have been seeing it in the tabloids, in the press, all over the internet. Ugandans are actually excited to receive people from Afghanistan, but let me now take you to the real facts of the issue. Afghanistan has been taken over by the Taliban. The Taliban has been a rebel group that has been at war with the current government in Afghanistan. Now, this has led to a lot of political instability, war, ill treatment of women, ill treatment of people generally, which has forced a lot of Afghanistani citizens to become refugees. They are now fleeing the country. The current government has fled the country. The entire world is in disarray. Now, the United States has requested Uganda to host about 2,000 refugees from Afghanistan. This is quite a large number, but however, on the good side, Uganda has always had what's called an open door policy. Now, what is an open door policy? An open door policy is basically you've left the door open, metaphorically and figuratively and physically. You've left the door open for anyone to come into your country and to seek asylum or to seek a safe refuge in your home. When you go deep into the facts of this, Uganda actually in the recent years has been one of the best countries that has been able to receive and host refugees for the longest time possible. Uganda currently is hosting about 1.6 million refugees. These refugees come from Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. These countries also look at Rwanda ever since the 1994 genocide. We also have South Sudanese, we have Somalia, we have Ethiopia, we have Eritrea. Uganda has become a safe haven for refugees and they are living amongst us. They're living in Uganda. They have their different settlements. We have settlement groups in Bidibidi. We have settlement groups in Isinjiro. We have settlement camps in Kaberamaido. We have them in Kiriandongo. We have them in Hoima. All over. Uganda's open door policy has made Uganda one of the most safe havens for refugees to thrive. But now, back to the facts of this. Uganda is now currently, I don't have my watch here, but we are actually getting ready to receive these refugees in a matter of hours, because from what I saw from the Minister of Disaster Preparedness, he recently said that we are yet to receive the refugees in a matter of hours. We're just trying to prepare for them to come. Now, to the matter of the issue. Who is a refugee? Refugees have been all over the country, and many of them may not even know that they have status of refugees, or they may know it but they don't know which acts govern their stay here in Uganda. But In Uganda, we have the Refugee Act of 2006. This Refugee Act of 2006 originated from what are called United Nations Conventions. From time immemorial, we had a lot of insurgents of refugees, from the Roman times to the times of Hitler in the World War I, World War II. We have had an insurgence of refugees. So therefore, the United Nations Conventions came in to, in a way, set the pace for what is currently refugee acts in different countries. But in a few seconds, I'm going to tell you who exactly a refugee is and what qualifies one to be a refugee. Let's go. So now that I've explained to you who a refugee is, we also need to understand what qualifies someone to be a refugee. We have Section 4 of the Refugees Act of 2006. It gives us small deductions of what qualifies someone to be a refugee, and they're very easy. Number one, someone who qualifies to be a refugee is someone who has fled his host country or his home country from issues of political instability. This can be from like the very Afghanistan issue we have talked about. This can be looked at in the issue that we had in Congo, in Somalia, in South Sudan, back in 1994 in the Rwandan genocide. So we have political instability that can qualify someone to be a refugee. Number two, we also have discrimination on racial. We have racial discrimination. For example, different countries have different cultures and religions and races. We have different groups of people in specific countries. In Somalia, we had the Tigray. We had many other people who were from different races but found themselves in the same country. So you find that different races are fighting each other because they believe that this race is superior to the other. So that's number two. Number three, we also have discrimination in regards to gender. There are times where different countries have their political instability in relation to gender. You find that women are being oppressed. Actually, we have the very issue of Afghanistan. We have the fact that women are being so oppressed so much, even by the Taliban, not only men, but even in that subset of women, they also have their own issue of being discriminated, the fact that they are women. The fact that Afghanistan is a Muslim country or an Islamic country, women are told to wear Sharia, those hijabs and everything, and they are so belittled so much. So that is also another issue as to how someone can also come into Uganda as a refugee. So those are some of the ways in which someone can qualify to become a refugee. I want us to understand that in the Refugee Act, you must qualify to become a refugee. The other way in which someone can qualify to be a refugee is if they actually have no nation. They don't subscribe to any country, they're not a citizen of any country. Most cases, these are people in no man's land, or these are people who perhaps their parents were refugees in a certain country, or they had been politically removed from, or they were fleeing from a country, and they find that now they settled in no man's land or in between borders, and they have no particular country that they subscribe to, they have no citizenship. So those kinds of people can also qualify to be refugees. Then we also have, finally, someone who has run away from their country because of aggression, and they have not conformed into a certain set norm or standard in their host country. Those ones can also be considered as refugees. So under the Refugees Act, like I told you, that's under Section 4 still. That it gives us the qualifications under which someone can qualify to be a refugee. I've gone through them: political instability, discrimination in terms of gender, race, race. Also someone who doesn't subscribe to any country, someone who has no citizenship from any country. All those can qualify to be refugees. Now, the rights of refugees are stipulated under Section 29 of the Refugee Act of 2006. Now, many of you may be wondering, what are these rights, Terry? Let me just briefly give you. Refugees have a right to be issued with an identity card to identify them as refugees. Refugees also have rights to move freely under Section 30. A refugee has a right to move around, do whatever he or she wants to do. That is why, I'm speaking to now, Ugandans, You can see South Sudanese moving around you. You can see Somalis moving around you. Now very soon we're going to have Afghanistanis moving around us. Anyway, that's another thing entirely. Refugees also have a right to fair treatment. What does fair treatment mean? It means that these refugees have a right to be treated fairly in the basic right of a human being. Now, these basic rights of human beings, it's just, you do not demean them with the fact that they are refugees. They are also people. It's just that unfortunate circumstances found them here in Uganda, living with us, but they deserve to be given the basic treatment with respect. We should deal with them. Also, under Section 29, refugees have a right to be employed in any organization, as long as they meet the set requirement for them to work in those organizations. Refugees, especially the children, have a right to basic and rudimentary education. This is elementary education such as nursery school. They have a right to go to primary school, secondary school. They even have a right to become lawyers. They have a right to become whatever they want to become in this country, especially the children who are given birth to here, because the rights of ordinary refugees who have come here in Uganda are different from the rights of refugee children. So aside from that, refugees also have a right to deal. They have a right to have industrial craft or to deal in any sort of business that they would want to do. That is why we have many refugees working, in areas of Kisenyi. They are dealing, they have their shops, they work in petrol stations, they work in businesses. So refugees have a right to have an economic living, some sort of living that is going to give them, money. Refugees have many rights in this country. I've just given you an overview of the kind of rights that they have, but in short, they have a right to be in this country. They have a right to fair treatment. They have a right to earn a living. They have a right to be who they are. They have a right to practice their own religions. By the way, they also have a right to marry and practice their customs here in Uganda. Before I conclude, I would like to just be more clear about what the law says, especially when it comes to the movement of refugees. You see, there are different types of refugees in Uganda. We have urban refugees and we have rural refugees. Rural refugees are people who live in areas of settlement, like settlement camps such as Bidibidi, in Hoima, in Kiriandongo, in Isinjiro district. There are a number of settlement camps. These refugees are a bit limited, and their right to movement under Section 30 still of the Refugee Act it's subject to restrictions, because by the time they're in settlement camps, they still need more processing for them to legally become citizens, or might I say refugee citizens in Uganda, because by the time they're in settlement camps, they have been coming from different countries due to political instability, insurgency. So they first need to put them in settlement camps, and then their own, they can release them after processing, and then they can get their refugee IDs like I had stated under Section 29 that they're entitled to. So the right to movement of refugees is still subject to restriction, but the urban refugees can move about in any way they want, as long as they can carry their IDs as refugees. Section 32 clearly stipulates that the refugee children are supposed to be accorded the same exact treatment as ordinary children here in Uganda. Ordinary babies, you have all of us have children around us. So therefore, the children of refugees should be given the exact amount of care that an ordinary Ugandan child should have. This is also subject to the United Nations Convention on Rights of a Child, and also the Children's Act of Uganda, Cap 59, which is Cap 59. So therefore, in a nutshell, refugee children have a right to basic health care, education, shelter, food, clothing, whatever it is. That is why we are going to have a lot of refugee children who are going to make a difference also in Uganda. So I'm also thrilled about that. Finally, we also have the rights of women refugees under Section 33. This basically stipulates that refugee women are supposed to enjoy all the fundamental rights that any normal human being or any normal woman should enjoy. So that's a simple breakdown of what the refugee rights are and how the refugee rights should be enjoyed. Like I told you, refugee rights, let me just give you an overview. Refugees have a right to have an ID, which will identify them as a refugee, which is a refugee identification card. They have a right to work, they have a right to earn a living, they have a right to practice agriculture. The refugee children have rights to go to school. They have in fact, refugee children have rights to become almost basic children like we have here. They enjoy the same rights that children in Uganda would enjoy under the Children's Act Cap 59 and also the United Nations Convention on Rights of a Child. Refugee women also have rights under Section 33. The refugee children have rights under Section 32. So their rights are in between. If you go back to the Act, their rights are in between Section 29 and Section 34. So those are basically all the stipulated rights I've given you in the Refugee Act, because the purpose of today's video was just to give you a breakdown of the facts about what's happening in Afghanistan and the refugees that are being brought here or that are being planned on being brought here. And I wanted to just give you an overview of what the Refugee Act says. I would also like to mention that Office of Prime Minister for Refugees is one of the big bodies that is responsible for taking care of refugees, for overseeing procedures in terms of them getting their IDs as refugees, to oversee their coming here, to oversee whatever process it is for refugees to come here. So thank you so much for listening to me. I remain yours truly, Terry Kahuma. For those who are new to my channel, welcome to Simply Legal, welcome to the tribe. For those who are new to my channel also, feel free to leave a comment, feel free to smash that subscribe button, feel free to hit the comment section, and for those who would want to leave comments, if there's anything I might have missed out in this video, feel free to hit the comment section, feel free to tell me what I could have missed out, feel free to tell me what you want me to do in a future video. And this is just part one of the refugee series, because the entire refugee law is a very, very big thing. I was just here to demystify for you exactly what amounts to the refugee laws, what amounts to the refugee rights, what amounts to qualifying one to become a refugee. So thank you so much for listening to me. I remain yours truly, Terry Kahuma, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.